You guys, gather close. I have to tell you the story of a man I loved, the shocking, chilling truth I unearthed about him and his traditional family, a darkness that went far deeper than I could have imagined. What began with sweet whispers of love twisted into a brutal saga of control, calculated lies, and a desperate, powerful journey to expose it all. Like and subscribe because this isn't just a story, it's a reckoning. The very first thing Jonah ever offered about his parents was that they were old-fashioned. I know now that was a sweet, gentle word for a cage lined with razor wire. Barely a year and a half later, I was standing frozen in a dim, forgotten parking lot, my boyfriend of nearly 2 years screaming a reality at me that had been staring me down the entire time. The signs were there. I just loved him enough to blind myself, believing that love was a tool that could fix a fractured soul. The systematic demolition began a week before the grand meeting. He called it getting ready, but it felt like being meticulously carved up. Straighten your hair, he'd instruct. Try to be quieter. Don't bring up your new title at work. Strong black women make my mom uncomfortable. I would stand before the mirror trying to fold myself into something smaller, something softer, desperate for his family's bare minimum acceptance. I was a ghost at every family event, Christmas, Easter, a cousin's wedding. Yet somehow his ex Tessa was always there, an eternal, smiling fixture in their photos. For every exclusion, Jonah offered an elaborate, desperate excuse, guest list drama, poor timing, and I, pathetic in my love, believed them all, staying home while Tessa posted of his relatives online. 6 months out, my own mother delivered the final painful verdict, looking me dead in the eye. Jonah's hiding you? I defended him then. He always looked so heartbroken, always promised he's fighting to change their prehistoric minds. The engagement party was meant to be my salvation, the moment I was finally deemed worthy after 18 months of contorting myself. For 2 excruciating weeks, he coached me like a fighter preparing for a fixed match, picking apart my clothes and words until the woman who arrived was barely recognizable to herself. I stepped into his childhood home, and his mother's smile was a sheet of ice that didn't touch her eyes. His father wouldn't even look at me. Wherever I went, the room went silent. The whole night was a hideous, forced performance, the palpabling that I was only being tolerated. At one point, I hid in their massive pantry, just so I could cry in a quiet corner. Then came the true soul-crushing blow. Not long after, I overheard her voice clear and cutting in the kitchen, asking someone how long they thought Jonah's phase would last. His phase. I was reduced to a temporary, rebellious experiment, not the woman he claimed to love. The final horrifying piece clicked into place when I offered to host his family for dinner at my apartment. Jonah's face went completely pale, a flicker of sheer panic. That wasn't a man trying to build a bridge, that was a man protecting the truth. His family would never step into my home because stepping into my world would make their deep-seated hatred too real, too unavoidable. When I asked him why he reacted like that, he gaslit me, accused me of imagining things, of making drama, of being ungrateful for his efforts. But the truth was a sigh that his efforts were all lies. For 18 months, he had been pretending, delaying, while his family silently planned my removal. Our fights became brutal, culminating him storming out, cold as stone. 3 days passed in a deathly silence. Then, the text, meet me in the work parking lot. We need privacy. He arrived and delivered the fatal diagnosis without a flinch. My family's never going to accept you. I'm done trying. When I demanded to know why he had stolen a year and a half of my life, he shrugged, the ultimate act of dismissive cruelty. I thought you'd give up first. Save me the trouble. I turned to leave, but his hand shot out and clamped onto my arm, hard enough to bruise. His grip tightened as I tried to pull away, and he leaned in, his voice a chilling threat, telling me not to make things messy at work or with our shared friends. I stumbled into my car, my hands shaking so violently I could barely get the key in the ignition. Driving, I kept checking my mirrors. Something had fundamentally shattered in him, and for the first time I felt true, stomach-dropping fear. 20 minutes later, I pulled into my apartment complex, still a wreck, still checking my rearview mirror. And then I saw it, Jonah's car, already there, parked in the visitor spot. My stomach dropped like a stone. He'd taken the shortcut, racing to beat me back. He was already leaning against my door, a shaking bouquet of roses in his hand, his expression cycling between the wounded, regretful mask I knew so well and something utterly cold. I stopped 10 feet away. He held out the roses, his fingers stiff and pale, practiced speech, stress not meaning what he said. Then his voice dropped, a quiet, insidious reminder that our parking garage conversation was private. Something no one else needed to hear. But then, a flicker of light, my neighbor Keisha opened her door, squinting down the hall. You okay out here? In a flash, Jonah's smooth, charming facade snapped back into place. We just had a little argument. He chuckled, playing the role of the loving partner. Keisha's eyes narrowed, sensing the rot beneath the performance. Then she mentioned walking her daughter to daycare. That's the one on 5th Street, right? With the butterfly mural. My blood ran cold. That wasn't a guess, it was specific, too specific. Keisha's face shifted instantly, and she stepped out into the hallway, her phone deliberately visible. Jonah took a small step back, his polite mask straining, and suggested we talk inside. I fumbled for my keys, desperate for air. The moment I got inside, my phone screamed. Marcus was calling, his voice tight with alarm. Jonah had just texted the group chat, claiming I'd suffered a mental breakdown at work, feigning worry. He had sent that message while driving here. He was already spinning the narrative. I stared at Jonah's back as he slowly, deliberately shook his head at me. I hung up on Marcus. The second I did, throated gaslighting speech, paranoid, misinterpreting, harmless, family actions. He gently placed the roses on my coffee table, a prop in his calm and thoughtful act. But through the window I saw his car still running, exhaust trailing in the cold air. I checked my phone again, scrolling to the photo I'd taken in the car. The bruises on my arm were already a deep. I snapped a photo and posted it to Instagram with one short, clear caption tie-in. The responses were instantaneous: likes, comments, messages flooding in. Then, the text from an unknown number: "Take it down now." I looked out the window. Jonah was still sitting in his idling car, eyes on his phone. The timestamp matched perfectly. My hands were shaking again. I tried to screenshot the evidence, but my phone died mid-save. The spare charger, the one Jonah had taken home last week and never returned. When it finally powered back on, the storm had hit. Jonah had posted again in the group chat, doubling down on his worry for my mental state, asking for grace during my episode, even claiming he was considering contacting my family. That's how serious it was. Then Di messaged me privately. Jonah had shown up at the office, cornering her near the break room, detailing my supposed instability. His description was too rehearsed, too smug. He looked pleased with the story he was building. That's when I remembered my old emergency phone, hidden deep in the back of my closet. I powered it up. The engagement party photos were still on it. When she thought no one was watching, was pure, undisguised disgust. And Tessa, his ex, watching me with an expression that was nothing short of pity. A frantic knock. It was Marcus, yelling loud enough for Joan to hear. "Jonah said he'd give me Bears tickets if I came over to check on your mental health." A moment of crucial public loyalty. Inside, my mother called. Jonah had gotten to her, too. Spin my wild claims, making her sound confused, concerned, and worst of all, doubtful. While Marcus poured coffee, I scrolled through old texts. One from early on promised, "My family will love you once they understand you," followed by a list of detailed instructions: how to wear my hair, what to avoid discussing, which achievements to downplay. He hadn't been helping me. He had been coaching me into silence. Then my inbox exploded. Jonah had sent an email to our book club thread, claiming I was working through emotional healing, and he was standing by me as a loving partner. He made himself the hero of my breakdown. 23 people read that email before I could stop it. A second email landed at Inchant demanding a mandatory meeting tomorrow morning. Jonah had officially filed a report claiming my mental state was affecting my job performance, while I sat frozen. The phone rang again. My building security guard, Jonah's mother, had shown up earlier, claiming she needed to collect some of her son's belongings. Saying Jonah had given her a key for emergencies, the guard didn't let her in, but she was too familiar with the building layout. That night I set my alarm for 4:45 a.m. Jonah always played basketball at the gym 5:00 a.m. I had to catch him when he thought the curtains were closed. Alone, I drove to the gym parking lot. I zoomed in on the indoor court. Jonah was making exaggerated hand motions. His friend clapped him on the back. I could read Jonah's lips clearly. Dodged a bullet. I went home and opened LinkedIn. 2 days ago, 2 days before our breakup, Jonah had added a new connection, the CEO of my company. He had been laying the groundwork, planning his exit and his next move before he ever delivered the final cold line. Then Diane sent me screenshots. Jonah had logged an early departure the day of the engagement party, claiming a client emergency. But he told me he stayed late at work. Security footage would surely confirm it. The pattern was now a neon sign: make me look unstable to friends, threaten my career through HR, let his family's quiet influence work behind the scenes. It was the same playbook his college ex hinted at years ago. He made her look crazy when she tried to leave him. Kisha knocked on my door. She had dated Jonah's cousin years ago and knew the playbook intimately. She told me about the black friend his family always trotted out for charity events, a token they could point to as proof they weren't prejudiced, but who was never invited to private family dinners. Accepted, but never equal. Kesha's cousin broke up with her after his parents threatened to cut off his trust fund. Later that day, Marcus, emboldened, answered Jonah about Bears tickets publicly in the group chat. "I'd rather stand by a friend than take bribes." The chat erupted. Jonah backpeeled frantically, claiming Marcus misunderstood. That night, someone was trying to log into my Netflix account. Jonah was digging for dirt, or just watching me, maybe both. The next morning at work, Diane had reached her limit. She confronted him directly, asking about the scratches on his hand, the ones I left when he grabbed me in the parking garage. He mumbled something about moving furniture, but Diane kept pressing, loud enough for others to hear. The lies were unraveling. My yoga studio, my sanctuary, was next. I walked in and saw him, Jonah, signing up for the intermediate class he'd never cared about, standing beside a blonde woman. Same build as Tessa, same nervous energy, the same way she tucked her hair behind ear when Jonah leaned in to whisper. I hid in the back corner. During warrior pose, he caught my reflection and held eye contact. His new girlfriend wobbled, and he reached out to steady her with that same gentle, protective glance he used to give me. My stomach twisted. I watched from my car as she touched her freshly straightened hair, and Jonah adjusted her tank top, his hand lingering, guiding her possessively toward his car. She smiled up at him, completely unaware she had just stepped into the same pattern. A few days later, my piloted me aside. She'd overheard Jonah's mother at the country club, laughing dismissively as she called me, just a phase. I doubled down. I backed up everything, texts, screenshots, emails. I mailed a USB to my cousin in Atlanta with one instruction: keep this safe. It felt paranoid, until I remembered his college ex, crash, after their breakup. I reported the parking garage incident to the police, but it was useless. The officer interrupted me constantly, suggesting couples therapy instead. I left with a fresh wave of self-doubt. But then Janet, a woman from Jonah's department, changed the game. Over coffee, she lowered her voice and revealed strange charges on Jonah's expense reports. He'd been logging personal purchases as business dinners for months. The kicker: he expensed his engagement party outfit, designer suit, fancy accessories, all charged to the company card. Janet had proof photos of the receipts. As I processed this, my phone buzzed. An Instagram message from an unfamiliar account. It was Tessa. Just one line: "I'm sorry I didn't warn you." His family made me go to therapy after it ended. I chose a quieter route than a public takedown. I shared facts with key people, streets names. The story became harder to ignore. Then came news: Jonah's parents' anniversary party next week, where his new girlfriend would be introduced. He was repeating the cycle, only faster this time. Kesha's cousin, a stylist, provided another piece of evidence. Jonah's mother had once asked to fix my hair type. The stylist was so offended she logged it in the appointment book. At Whole Foods, I bumped into them. In the spice aisle, she reached for seasoned salt and I saw Jonah's jaw clench. He gently redirected her hand to the plain salt, smiling through gritted teeth. She blinked confused, but didn't argue. The small, early signs of control. Later that week, Jonah offered an NDA, a non-disclosure agreement: stay quiet and walk away. Silence was his weapon and I refused to yield it. His basketball buddies started asking questions. Jonah could every ex the same way. They went crazy 3 in a row. Now the guy was talking about it at the gym. Jonah's image was splintering. Tessa sent her timeline. His family started sabotaging her the week she got a promotion ahead of him. His control only worked inside his family's suffocating bubble. Outside, where people demanded receipts, his charm wore off fast. That knowledge was armor, then delivered the final, devastating footage: a security video from the engagement party. It showed Jonah's mother pouring red wine on me. Not spilling it. Pouring. The smirk on her face, made it was all on camera, undeniable. Marcus lost 2 clients close to Jonah's family, but he stood his ground. Truth has a cost. I'm willing to pay it. I continued to document, passing what I knew to people in our shared circles, letting the truth find her without me looking vengeful. The inevitable confrontation happened at a coffee shop. Jonah walked up, obsessed, loudly in front of customers. But in minutes, he contradicted 3 lies he'd told earlier. The barista saw everything, her phone out, recording. Jonah noticed and confirmed a horrifying detail: Tessa had shared old photos from 2019 showing bruises, the exact same pattern, the same shape and places on the arm as mine. This wasn't a spiral, it was a pattern spanning years and multiple women. I met with advocates. I chose the parking garage for my final meeting with Jonah. Full circle. This time I was calm, steady. I listed every lie, named the witnesses: Jonah's performance collapsing. HR closed their investigation. 5 coworkers vouched for me. His complaints backfired, showing a paper trail of manipulation and projection. HR was now looking into him. His new girlfriend was asking why none of his exes ever showed up to group events anymore. She was connecting the dots faster than I did. Janet found Jonah's law school ex. She had also filed a workplace complaint before quietly leaving town. We now had documentation from at least 4 women whose stories lined up perfectly. I reached out to his new girlfriend's best friend, sharing the bruising patterns carefully, quietly, with respect. The friend was stunned, having already noticed a shift in her friend's style, becoming more muted, more neutral. Members of our old book club began apologizing, remembering moments when his controlling behavior made them uncomfortable, but they hadn't spoken up. Even the gym staff backed me against his attempts to revoke my membership, with the manager saying I wasn't the first woman to file a quiet complaint about Jonah. Things escalated. Security cameras caught Jonah's mother at my grocery store, taking photos of my license plate. She fled when an employee confronted her, but the footage was saved. Undeniable. 3 of Jonah's exes agreed to share their stories. We built a timeline showing the systematic control, gaslighting. I saw the anniversary party on Instagram. Huge, expensive. His new girlfriend was not pictured. Then, the line was crossed. Jonah's father called my office. Told her stop harassing the family. That call was recorded. My boss reported it to corporate security as a potential threat. My conscience sharpened. I built something better. A safe space for every woman Jonah had hurt. We shared stories, connected timelines, and healed. The goal was no longer destruction, but protection. The whisper network grew louder than any public takedown. Jonah's new girlfriend never showed up to the anniversary party. Her best friend had shared the photos of the bruises. The cycle was breaking faster this time. Panicked, Jonah drove to my mother's house with flowers, tears on cue. But she wasn't fooled. She stood firm, phone in hand, and told him if he didn't leave she'd call her neighbor, a retired cop with a gunked-off fast, but his desperation was now dangerous. His company's promotions committee started paying attention. His image, the one he spent years constructing, was unraveling under the weight of coordinated truth-telling. Our support group grew into a lifeline. Unexpected allies emerged: Jonah's father's secretary, the pastor's wife, the country club bartender, all with stories of disgusting comments and prejudice. The housekeeper at his parents' home, quiet for years, shared her final, damning recordings audio of Jonah's mother ranting, cruel, racist, and deliberate. There was no defending it. Women from different cities and years came together, layering their stories. Therapists called it textbook abuse with clear racial components. We compiled everything, hundreds of files, and handed it to a board member at Jonah's company. Even loyalty couldn't protect Jonah now. Their social standing, the one thing they valued, began to crumble. Cornered, security cameras sprayed painted black, rose petals scattered near my car. A threat wrapped in old, twisted romance. He had a public, airtight alibi. The police filed a report, but the system once again protected him. People started pulling away, tired of the fear. I stayed in a friend's spare room, my safe house, alone. I realized the isolation Jonah had tried to create was now working. Not by his will, but by fear. On the floor, scrolling through messages from other survivors. Their courage was contagious. I made my decision: I'm going to the gala. Marcus secured a private security team. Diane finalized the documentation for the CO. Janet rallied a group of witnesses. If Jonah wanted a scene, he would get one, but on my terms. The panic was immediate: 17 missed calls in less than an hour. Messages shifting from soft apologies, frantic, pleading, chaos from his terrified parents. I didn't sleep. The fear had calcified into sharp, steady resolve. Sunday arrived. At Marcus' apartment, his sister shaped my natural curls into a bold crown. No straightening, no hiding. The dress was crimson, commanding, unmissable. Everything Jonah tried to shrink was on full display. We stepped into the ballroom as a team, eyes forward. Jonah saw me instantly. His face cycled through shock, rage, fear before the practiced smirk returned. He moved toward me, his parents following, and launched into a low, fast-torn threats: defamation, legal action, professional consequences. His mother clung to her polished smile, her jaw tight. I stayed silent. Then, I took out my phone and to read. Timeline, incident, witness, date, location, pattern, one by one. My voice never wavered. Conversations quieted. Jonah stammered, called me, but his contradictions stacked up, denying the garage incident, then claiming self-defense. Then came the crack. When I mentioned the audio recordings from their housekeeper, her voice rose, sharp, bitter. She's trying to ruin our lives. Women like her always twist things. The smile fell away. The mask had fully dropped. Her unfiltered, ugly truth cut through the ballroom, and everyone heard it. Then, a quiet intervention. The CEO's wife, a civil rights attorney, stepped out of the crowd. She introduced herself, held up her phone, and announced she had recorded everything, including the mother's outburst. She called our documentation compelling. Security closed in. Jonah's father tugged frantically at his wife. Too late. Jonah made one final plea for private talk, but the security team stepped between us. His face twisted into raw fury. The board member I'd sent the evidence to appeared next to the CEO. Then, the CEO looked up and made the short, devastating announcement. Effective immediately, Jonah will be placed on administrative leave. Gasps filled the ballroom. Jonah's parents bolted, his mother's heels clacking like gunshots on the marble. Jonah stood for one beat, utterly still, then turned and walked out. No applause, no confrontation, just the sickening sound of power draining from a man who once believed he was untouchable. The aftermath was swift. HAR's investigation uncovered buried complaints, misused funds. By the end of the week, Jonah had resigned. His parents withdrew from public boards. No headlines, no scandal, just quiet, undeniable consequences. Monday morning, I returned to work. My desk notes tokens of solidarity. The promotion Jonah had blocked was fast-tracked. The company introduced new policies. Our support group met monthly, a lifeline of shared job leads, therapy referratories. Jonah destroyed himself. He moved back into his parents' home. His reputation collapsed. His circle grew smaller. I was healing slowly, steadily. My value came from knowing who I was, not from being chosen. 6 months after the gala, I spoke at our company's diversity panel on coercive control. My voice was strong. I shared my story not to relive it. As I wrapped up, I saw her, a young black woman in the front row, absently touching her straightened hair. In her eyes, recognition, resolve. Her hand lowered. Her shoulders lifted. A decision had been made. I gave her my card. Later that afternoon, she emailed me. She had ended things. No drama, no big fight, just a quiet decision made in clarity. A cycle broken. I had learned the ultimate lesson: telling the truth, even when it costs everything. Create space for others to do the same.